Hello there and welcome to Mad Doc Minis. In this video I'm going to be making a Warhammer 40,000 Imperial settlement. It's not going to be a ruin settlement as most of the kind of builds are in the grimdark future. This is going to be mostly intact, kind of settlement on a frontier world, a mining world or an agri world or something like that. Quite versatile. I want it to be quite modular as well so I can stack it in different ways and make different setups and that. High-end boxes are a good choice here. iPhone boxes, perfume boxes, any box that has a little bit of a sheen on it, like a plasticky sheen, is also quite good because it doesn't look quite so cardboardy when you paint it. Here I've just added some cardstock to the corners and a bit of EPVC on the end of this box that was for a sensor light, just to hide any super boxy features. Then adding a Lego ladder cut to size with clippers just on the side for a bit of access up to the next level, and some baby food lids as nice big industrial fans on the side. These are great, I use these in a lot of builds. Super easy greebling for no effort. So yeah, lots of those lying around with young kids. Door made out of EPVC frame and a little bit of cardstock and a handle for a nice inset look. Always try and make your doors look inset. It makes them look more realistic. Same principle here with this garage door, just hiding an ugly seam on the bottom of the box with this door. Instead of cardstock, just using this drawer liner, which is a plasticky type of material, but you could use corrugated paper just as easily, and that gives a really nice little garage door setup there. Just adding a little button or a control mechanism on the side with a bit of Lego tubing and some more EPVC cut really small to make some buttons. So little details like that really do make a difference here and there. Then I'm going to make this tower out of this molten brown container, which I believe contained perfume or something at some point. It's just got some nice shapes to it. It's about the right size for a little tower. So adding another Lego ladder with these nice railings on the side that just goes really well on the side of this one, I think. I've got to extend that a little bit with a bit more offcut of ladder because it doesn't go all the way down to the base. So that's easily done. And then I had a vent on the side to cover the molten brown logo up because that's going to show up with painting otherwise. So easy to hide that one there. This cheese container is really thin cardboard, so I put a little Lego wheel in the middle, which is just the right height, and that adds some rigidity to the structure so it won't sink in the middle. And I'm then going to add some cardstock around the outside of that using a hot glue gun, and that just tidies up the ugly seam where the container's been opened. So yeah, hot glue does the trick really well for that kind of thing. I'm then going to add a cake pillar, a plaster cake pillar, which is something quite easy to get on eBay or Amazon, and that's really nicely scaled to 28mm scale and is a wonderful little thing. And that's going to add a base to this monument. Just going to add a Space Marine on top of there that I had kicking around, and when that's all painted properly, that's going to be a really nice little central feature. This After 8 container here has a nice rotating feature on top. This is going to be a really simple tower. I'm just going to glue that with some hot glue onto a larger lid, plastic lid that I had lying around. I do add a little bit more detail onto this later, as you'll see in the later footage, with some little Lego vents towards the top end, but really quite a simple build, that one. Next comes this generator build, Lego power miner wheels that slot together really nicely. Some other little bits of Lego here, like this kind of radar dish looking thing, just glued onto some lids, some plastic lids, and I just kind of like mash that together, and it starts to look really good actually. Again, for a little effort, just having the right bits kicking around can really pay sometimes. And I actually use some plumbing fixtures here, some pipe clamps or clasps, to add a structure to hold the generator up off of its base. The base is just half of the iPhone box that was in the beginning footage. It's a really nice solid base, and it goes on there nicely size-wise, and just adds a nice little bit of extra detail to the terrain set. Yeah, I'm really happy with how this one turned out actually. It's going to look really nice painted up at the end, I think. And yeah, no effort really, which is always a bonus. Great for me because I'm a bit of a lazy kind of terrain builder. Here we're using a slightly bigger box for this really old kind of light bulb. Must have had this box for ages. EPVC added to the top to cover the kind of boxy folds on top, using these Lego pieces to make really easy window frames. They're about the right size, and I just cut out the middle strut from these vents, and you can like pair them up like I'm doing here, and instant windows. Really good. My advice for windows is to draw lines onto the side of your structures to get them all lined up nicely and make sure they're the right height for your miniatures and such. So that's definitely a must do if you're using technique for stick-on windows like me. Old child's toy plastic tennis racket. Old as the hills, this trick, but use it for ladders and railings and things like that. File it down a little bit. Super easy, super cheap ladders. I mean, you're going to get loads of ladders out of just one of those rackets. And yeah, can't recommend it highly enough for if you're like me and are a bit lazy and you don't mind too much about the overall look at the end. They're perfect. So yeah, you must get yourself one of those guys if you haven't already. And we're going to add some details to the top using some granny grating or stitching mesh. Love this stuff. There's a lot of hate for it, but I absolutely adore it. Easy peasy for grated flooring. So that adds nice detail to the roof. We're going to make a transceiver dish now out of this ruminate piece. Originally looked like this. So it had flares in it to kind of cut off and filed down. It's a nice size and shape for a radar dish though. We're going to put that onto a bit of pipe toy, cut it at an angle, and then going to glue that, hot glue it onto a bottle top. And we're actually going to kind of weigh that down as well because it's inherently quite unstable. So I put some 2p pieces in the hollow in the bottle top and hot glue that down. I think it cost me about 8p, so it's really kind of breaking the bank a bit there. Ooh. I'm then going to add this little bit of plastic rod in the center of the transceiver dish, which comes from a Chinese construction toy set that I got off of Wish a few months back. Got lots of different shapes and things in it which I use all over this build, but that's just a bit of rod that goes in nicely there, and a bit of super glue does the trick. Really happy with that because I can put it on the top of any building or any tower that I've made just to add a bit of extra detail or add an objective or something like that. So yeah, really pleased with that little transceiver. Breaking up this large flat area now on this building with some EPVC paneling. Paneling is always a good idea if you don't know what else to do with a large area like that. Here, making a big storage tank with a drinks can glued onto the other half of the iPhone box. Hot glue does the trick nicely. Going to add in a toy plastic pipe out of the side of that from a kit I got off of Amazon. And a plastic cog from that same kit goes right on top of the tank for extra detail. We need some roof access for some sniping, so one of those tennis racket ladders does the job. A little bit of granny grating goes right on top of the box as well for some extra detail. Minutes to build, but a great little item for any industrial terrain really. Here, these Echo Dot boxes, a friend let me have these, and I'm going to use those to make 3 identical habitation blocks. Same techniques for windows as before, using the Lego pieces and drawing lines on just so I can get them nicely lined up and everything. We've got to be a bit careful here. We want these to look sci-fi and not too much like houses from Brookside, which is, if you're wondering what the hell I am talking about, if you're in the United States, it was a terrible soap opera from the 80s and the 90s in the UK. Go and check that out. I've got the theme tune running through my head now. Oh, save me. Right, so moving back to the project, we're using these little pieces from that same Chinese toy that I referenced earlier. They're perfect size for door frames and just cut down the effort required, really. No cutting out of EPVC or anything. They just glue straight on the side. Here, need to bring these houses back into the sci-fi fold, so adding these big ventilation fans made from the baby food tops on a bit of EPVC backing. They go on the roofs, same position on each one, so I want them to all be identical. And we're actually going to add in some more details on the side of the building with some Lego as well, and a ladder made out of the tennis racket for roof access. I want these to all be kind of playable and everything, so roof access is quite important for me. So there we are. We're going to break up the flatness of the roof with some more granny grating. Again, just I think helps them bring back into a futuristic setting rather than just looking like ordinary dwellings, really. So that was an important one, and it just breaks up a large featureless area nicely. We do go back now and add a bit of extra detail to the windows. I use these little sloped pieces just to make the windows look a little bit better, basically, and less stuck on, which they are, of course, stuck on, but I don't want them to look that way if I can help it. But I like the way these turn out, so these Lego sloping pieces do the trick. Nice. I add in various bits and pieces all over the build now. Plastic drinking straws for pipes, little bits of toy, little bits of ruminate that I had lying around, just to break up some of these large flat surfaces a little bit. I actually go back and add some Lego wheels to the top of the filtration units, and I go to the habitation blocks and add them on later as well, as you can see here, because I want this idea of a consistent technology running through the settlement, which helps to bind all the buildings together, I think. Painting now, browns and greys mixed together, cheap acrylics here, nothing special, watered down a little bit, and first coat gets slapped on. Looks quite tan in this footage, but actually dries quite grey afterwards. Now, once these things are painted and they're drying, so they're still wet, which is really important, I then go in and add some green paint into that same mixture and kind of streak that over the top and blob it here and there. But kind of most of it's wiped off, as you can see on the tissue paper, and that just adds some colour and tone variation in the buildings, which makes them look more realistic, I think. On to washes now. Dark brown, heavily watered down, still cheap acrylics here. I'm going to streak those under vents and windows and off the rooftops and anywhere where water might kind of seep down and run down the building. And then we come in with a tissue and kind of just dry that up a little bit and streak it out and dull it down. Simple, easy thing, but it really makes things look so much more realistic and weathered doing this step. So can't recommend that enough. So we're going to cover all the industrial bits and pieces now with some bulk gunmetal, or lead belcher it's called now, isn't it? Sorry, I'm an old git with paint names. I just don't like the new names at all. The floor grating we're going to come back to later, as you'll see in a minute, but that gets a coat of bulk gunmetal as well at this stage. But I actually paint that black and go again in a minute. Here the generator also gets a coat of that as well, because it just didn't look right just being grey on its own. We're going to add a splash of colour now to the tank, some yellow, and then some Thunderhawk blue to bits and pieces all over the build with some sci-fi stripes. Steady hand really pays off here. Take your time, draw little pencil lines to help if you need to, is my advice. We're going to add some scale back to this now with some little signs printed off the computer, and yeah, they really add a bit of character and just bring everything back to scale, I think. And I do weather them down. They look quite stark here, but they all get dulled back down later, as you'll see. These posters, propaganda posters, was an idea borrowed from Midwinter Minis, as was the graffiti here. So little bits and pieces, just add a bit of a narrative. And we've got a blood splatter there, so you know what's happened here, murder or what, you know. Just adds more interest. Here you can see where I've oversprayed on the grating. Now you can see that I get a much nicer finish on the lead belcher, but I just kind of streak that black bit there because I don't really want that shadow. I just streak that with the same paint. It just lightens it up a little bit. And these are industrial type buildings, you know, so it doesn't really matter. And I think that's an easy solution. I didn't really want to go and manually paint them black. Here the Space Marine gets his final coats of paint. We're going to go to visuals any second, guys. If you like what you've seen in this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. All helps the channel grow.